Guess which team is currently allowing an NBA record 16 3-pointers made per game?
So that would be the worst defense, the most stand-around defense. I'm just watching things happen. I'm not really moving a lot. I don't know, Caroline. I think that makes me think Dallas. I could go Dallas to the Clippers. What do you think, Caroline?
I might defer to New Orleans for every single one.
We've covered all three
of these questions.
Okay.
It's neither.
I'll lean Pels.
It's neither. Neither New Orleans or Dallas. On this one, we're going Clippers, the team that is the oldest team in the NBA, 31.7 average age of the roster, according to minutes played. They also give up a record 16 made 3-pointers per game, guys, and that is an atrocious number for a team that last year they kind of hung their hat on their defensive side of the ball. Jeff Van Gundy took over as, the defensive coordinator on the bench for Tyronn Lue, and they were one of the best defensive teams in the NBA this year. Now they're bottom 5, and a big reason why is they're not getting out to shooters. They are not closing out. They're collapsing defensively and not making sure that they get a hand up. And opponents are making an NBA record 16 3-pointers made per game. And they're playing at an incredibly slow pace. One of the slowest teams, if not the slowest, in the NBA. So when you look at the Clippers, this is not just a tough team to watch because they're old and slow, but they're also the worst at defending the most important shot in the game, the 3-ball.
What's the margin of difference between the Clippers and the second worst team in terms of defending the 3-point shooters? Because at this point, is it so bad? Is the margin so wide that you have to make some changes in Los Angeles? Are there changes looming, or is it just the Clippers by a narrow margin and there's a whole bunch of crap teams in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, it's a narrow margin. Utah's second worst in the league, just right behind them. But I would say for a Clippers team that prides themselves on defense and has every reason not to take this season because they don't own their first-round pick, they're trying to win games. Utah, it's an open question whether they're trying to win games this season because you got Walker Kessler injured out for the season with a torn labrum in his shoulder, and they are one of the teams that many believe are trying to maximize their lottery chances this year. The Clippers don't have that excuse. The Clippers, their defense is atrocious so far to start, and a lot of it I think is due to the fact that guys, Bradley Beal, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, they're in and out of the lineup with injuries. And who could have seen this coming? The average age of the team is 32 years old. And so, yeah, we could all see this coming, that a team this old would have a difficulty in defending the 3-point shot and getting out to 3-point shooters.
Tom, but this comes back to something we were just talking about with the Pittsburgh Steelers, trying to understand where you are versus where you're going versus where your timeline is, right? To your point, this is an old team with a bunch of stars that's not playing any defense and doesn't have a lot of lottery. They're not going to tank. But they're not good enough to win a championship this year. What should the reasonable expectation be for even where we are with the Clippers this season?
Well, they don't really have any young players in which they could trade to go get help, but they do have 2 future first-round picks that they could trade, and Lawrence Frank, the president of basketball operations, is the head decision-maker here, and he's also the top decision maker for a team that is under investigation by the league for cap circumvention. So we've talked about it before on this program. Do the Clippers look at the situation and say, we need some help, and Adam Silver might come down and drop the hammer on us if they find any sort of wrongdoing by Steve Ballmer and the organization. We might lose those future first-round picks if we don't trade them right now. So the sooner that we trade them, the better chance we can actually get a player with those picks. So that might be what they do, is try to develop some sort of trade market for those first-round picks, future first-round picks, and then move them before any sort of investigation conclusion comes to light. And hey, if they need more defenders out there, I'll just throw this name out. Mark Cuban has done a pretty good job defending that organization. So you can find a way to go get him out on the floor maybe and help that 3-point defense that has been a dumpster fire. So I got another one for you.
Yeah, give it to me.
I got the second one here is we talked about defense, 3-point defense. Which team has the worst 3-point shooting in the NBA? 3-pointers made per game at 9.7, the league worst in this category. Who do you think it is? Fitz?
I'm going to say Pelicans. I'm going to say the Pels are the worst shooting team. Caroline, are you backing me up on this?
I mean, I feel like I have to because that's just like the low hanging fruit answer. Hey, who's the worst in the NBA?
Is it the Mavericks?
Something?
Is it the Mavericks?
New Orleans. I will go Mavs though. We'll flip flop. I will go Mavs here.
Man.
Yeah, Fenton's got this one. She's right. It's the Dallas Mavericks. And who could have thought that a guy like Luka Dončić, who by himself makes a lot of threes and then generates every year just about more three-pointers for his teammates than anybody in the NBA, and they traded that guy, didn't they? Well, now they're reaping what they sowed. The Dallas Mavericks have the lowest made three-pointers in the game right now with 9.7, and they're going with an 18-year-old at point guard, Cooper Flagg, as their point guard. And this, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. This is one of those things where you're like, duh, we got Cooper Flagg starting at 6'9" as the point guard on most nights, and Klay Thompson shooting under 30%. They got 6 guys with high-volume three-point shooting that are shooting actually below 30% this season. It's a really tough watch if you're a Mavs fan, not just because of the Luka Dončić trade, but just the product out on the floor has been really difficult with Cooper Flagg struggling as the point guy. And yeah, we should have expected that. He's 18 years old, and he's not a pure point guard back at Duke or this season. And so this is a team that absolutely needs to figure things out, not just on the floor, but I think Nico Harrison's job, and there are whispers around the league. You read Mark Stein, who covers the Dallas Mavericks for the Steinline Substack as closely as anybody. He is reporting that there is not just zero indication of, the Mavericks might be making a trade. For the first time in Mark Stein's reporting, it kind of feels like the direction is changing in Dallas. And I'm not saying he's going to be fired, Nico Harrison, anytime soon, but this is an awful start for the Dallas Mavericks.
Let's start there then with Nico Harrison, because it's not just the product on the court for the Mavs. It's also comparing it to what you're seeing from Luka with the Lakers. He's averaging 37 points a game. He's looking like a league MVP. It's early, but things look rough. The trade looks even worse now than at the time, if that's even conceivable. What is the leash on Nico Harrison? And is that closely tied to the development of Cooper Flagg?
Yeah, I don't know what he needs to do to get fired at this point, because you would have thought that the trade itself would have been a fireable offense in the light of the trade and how poorly it looked conceived and the performance in the second half of the season, especially when you consider Anthony Davis has been barely healthy for this team. And one of the reasons why you presumably trade Luka Dončić is because he doesn't have great conditioning and he might be an injury risk. You can't say that when you're getting Anthony Davis, one of the most injury-riddled players in the league, who's 7 years older than Luka Dončić. And so when you see that Anthony Davis hasn't played much this season, he's been out several games with an injury, and then you consider that Cooper Flagg is the only saving grace is getting Cooper Flagg by pure luck. It's had nothing to do with Nico Harrison. He said, can you see the vision now? Now people are seeing the vision. Well, if the vision ends up being you're the worst offense in the Western Conference, I think every Dallas Mavericks fan should absolutely try to get this guy out of there, because that can't be the vision. Now, I know he said defense wins championships. He gave that quote to Tim McMahon over at ESPN, but you can't have the worst offense in the Western Conference and expect to be competing. So I expect that Nico Harrison, the boos, the fire Nico chants, if they don't turn it around quickly, I don't know how much longer the Mavs can do this with him at the helm.
I'm just saying, like, ever the cynic, I know, but AD can't stay healthy. Cooper Flagg isn't immediately changing the fortunes of a franchise. These are predictable things. These are all predictable things that we're out there. It just feels like they lost. Give me one. I know you've got more, and we've got to figure. But there's got to be one here in the Pelicans. We both guessed the Pelicans. There's got to be something on the Pelicans. Tom, come on, give me something.
Well, I'm not going to give it away, but guess which team has the fourth best odds at winning the number one overall pick at 12.5%, but actually are trading that pick so they can't even enjoy having a good shot at the best player next year?
I'll take New Orleans Pelicans for 500, Alex.
That's it. Yeah. I'm not even going to go with you, Fitz. It's the answer. That's the answer right here. We got the New Orleans Pelicans have the fourth worst record in the NBA right now at 2-7, and they can't even enjoy the fruits of tanking this year because they already traded this pick. The upcoming 2026 New Orleans pick is going to Atlanta. And if you remember, I know you guys remember this, in the NBA Finals, Joe Dumars, the new head decision maker for the New Orleans Pelicans, one of his first moves as being the president of basketball operations for the Pelicans is trading their pick in this upcoming draft, the 2026, and giving that pick to Atlanta when you had the chance at basically leveraging this pick. Indiana Pacers traded their 2026 pick, their future 2026 pick, to get into the draft in that year, and then Tyrese Halliburton got injured. So that 2026 pick for the Indiana Pacers, hugely valuable now for the Pacers, but the Pelicans traded their 2026 pick presumably because they thought, hey, we're going to be good this year. We don't need that 2026 first overall pick. And sure enough, they're at 2-7 because Joe Dumars already traded that to Atlanta, and now they can't even control their destiny on that. So with Zion Williamson already injured this season, and they don't have the number 1 overall pick for themselves, this is we talk dumpster fire. This is really, really difficult because at least with Dallas, they can root on winning the lottery again with their pick. They can't even do that in New Orleans with their chances right now going to the Atlanta Hawks.
In a few years, when we're talking about Zion, is he a Pelican? Does it ever develop into something special, Tom?
I think the chances of him moving on are certainly higher now that Joe Dumars is the new president of basketball operations. Because look, if you buy a house, right, you're going to want to change all the stuff in the house to make it look like your own, right? Same thing for Joe Dumars. He is acquiring a team, and he wants to create a team that is his image, and the pieces that he inherited from the previous regime, maybe he wants to make a team in the way that he wants to run it. And Zion Williamson, at this current stage, being as injury risk as he is, I'd imagine that it's going to be tough to build around that guy, especially for a new GM, a new front office lead decision maker like Joe Dumars. So Zion Williamson, if he doesn't get traded at this deadline, I suspect that if they have another lost season with him, that it's going to be tough to expect him to be around long term.